Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We will go ahead and get our program started. I'd like to introduce Jay Henry with the Addison Business Association, who will lead us in our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Orlando. Could I get you to stand, please? Let's pray. Father, we're so thankful for your love for us and how you care for us and even this food you've provided to nourish our bodies. And Lord, the rain that we've had that's got us out of a drought in Texas, we just praise your name for that. Lord, thank you for these business leaders and community leaders that are gathered here today. And Father, I pray you'll bless our time together. Father, we would be remiss if we didn't remember those of the flood victims that are hurting now, and just thank you for our first responders and bless them as they're treating them, and even in our community, the MetroCrest services are providing service for that. Lord, as we listen to Mr. Frey tell us about the future, Father, we just thank you that you're already there, and Lord, that you are in control, and we just love you, and now just thank you for all you do for us. For it's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Let's say the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jay. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Addison Mayor Todd Meyer, who will do the official welcome and introduction of the head table.
Thank you, Orlando. On behalf of 275 professionals that make up our super team of customer service in Addison and my council colleagues, welcome. We're really pleased that you could make it today to our second annual conference. I know you'll enjoy our speaker, and we really appreciate you being part of our community. I'd like to share with you the honor and privilege that I have of working with some of the folks that I just referred to. They're here today. I'll ask them to stand if I could. My council colleagues, Mary Carpenter, Dale Wilcox, and Ivan Hughes. And we're also have the good fortune of serving with the professionals that make up our city management staff, led by Charles Daniels, Cheryl Delaney, and Chris Terry. We're really honored to all work with them and for you. Again, thank you for being with us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Orlando Campos. I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the town of Addison. I want to thank all of you for being here today. Aside from our neighbors in Carrollton and Farmers Branch, I understand that we have visitors from other parts of the region here, so welcome to Addison. Before we begin the program, I want to recognize a few groups that have helped make this event possible. The first is the MetroCrest Chamber of Commerce. Erin Carney, thank you and your staff for your support and help, and as well as to your board of directors for your support in our economic development endeavors. The second is the Addison Business Association, who has a long history representing the interests of Addison-based businesses and helps with our efforts to welcome new businesses to the community and make them feel at home. Gage, Jay, and the entire board, thank you for all you do. Both are extraordinary organizations here within our community, and if you are not a member of either, I strongly encourage all of you to consider joining those groups. Our mayor has introduced the head table that is joined by our guest speaker, Thomas Fry, whom we will hear from in just a few minutes. But there's another table I want to recognize, which is seated by representatives of Addison-based Axiometrics. Axiometrics is a multifamily market research company that focuses in on analyzing data in this real estate sector to help investors make informed decisions. The real estate sector is the multifamily real estate sector. We are happy to have key executives of the company here today. Our mayor and I had the pleasure of visiting the company a few days ago. They are a fast-growing company that started with a handful of employees and now have many more that now call Addison home. Their success has not only been a result of the demand for their services, but because of the talented, creative individuals they employ that call Addison home. During our visit, they said, "We like being in Addison. Our employees like being in Addison as well." Happy employees make productive employees. I think all of us will attest to that. In Addison, we definitely recognize that. For the last 19 years, I have worked in various communities in the state of Texas in economic development under several different capacities. 4 years ago, when I came to Addison, the charge from our city council was fill up our office buildings. Addison has approximately 10 million square feet of quality office space within our 4.3 square mile boundary. 4 years ago, nearly 25% of that space was vacant. In addition to that, our major shopping center, Village on the Parkway, stood approximately 60% vacant with seasonal changes, especially when a certain Halloween shop opened for about a month here at the shopping center. Today, our office vacancy rates are at 14% and declining. Our challenge is that we are running out of large contiguous spaces within our community to house the companies that want to be here within Addison. We're very fortunate, however, that a developer, Colley Partners, is currently building a brand new 200,000 square foot building. Our retail vacancy rates have gone from 12% to 7%. Go to Village on the Parkway on any given weekend now, and you see the activity that has been created. Addison is not known for our manufacturing. However, our vacancy rates in that market are at an all-time low of 3.9%. All of these figures speak volumes of the activity that has been generated in just a few years. I wish I could take the credit for all that, but I can't. I just feel very, very blessed. I am blessed to work with approximately 270 employees that deliver quality services, and each one of them carries their own weight to make things happen on a daily basis. I am blessed to work with leadership that understands economic development, from our elected officials to our city manager's office. But most importantly, I am blessed to work with the region's best economic development team, and I'd like to introduce them. They include Drew Dietrich, who is our economic development manager, and I'd like for them to stand to be recognized. Alicia Holmberg, who is our tourism coordinator. And last but not least, Kimberly Bettis, our department assistant. Thank you all for your hard work. We have come a long way in just a short period of time, but we cannot sit back. We must continue to move the momentum that we have helped create forward to ensure that we remain competitive and relevant in this region. I am often reminded of a Japanese proverb that says, "Vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare." We in Addison have a vision, and we are delivering on that vision. Leveraging the support of regional resources and key stakeholders is pinnacle to our success, as is thinking about the future and what we want to become. During last year's Economic Development Luncheon, I revealed that contractors were in the midst of finishing out 15,000 square foot of office space that would become the Addison Treehouse. The Treehouse is a co-working space environment to support the business startup community in North Texas and create new business seedlings that we hope will someday become the big companies of tomorrow. More importantly, the Treehouse is true testament of regional collaboration for the benefit of economic development. The Treehouse houses my department, but we are proud of the collaboration we have leveraged with our key partners, including the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, the North Texas Small Business Development Center, and Baylor University's Accelerated Ventures program. I want to recognize Trey Bowles, Jeremy Vickers, and Paula Jean, who are here today from the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, and Paula, who is director of the Treehouse, for their support over the last few months as we launched the Treehouse. I also want to recognize Mark Langford, Katrina Wade Miller from the North Texas Small Business Development Center, who are also here. Thank you for your support during the last few months. Joining them are a few entrepreneurs that now call Addison home, and you'll see them seated in those two tables in the center of the room. So we hope that you will, after the event, welcome them to Addison. Since we launched the Treehouse last July, we have been able to support over 40 business startups that now call Addison home. In addition to that, we have hosted several different events that have brought over 2,500 people through our doors. More importantly, we have helped coalesce the resources that are essential for entrepreneurs as they launch their business here in the North Texas region. I also want to recognize Collide Village Accelerator, which is housed inside the Addison Treehouse. Last fall, they launched 6 business startups, and they are currently in the process of taking applications from entrepreneurs to launch 11 additional business startups in the fall. The Treehouse has certainly revolutionized the support now available within our community for the startup community in North Texas. As you can see, we have managed to do quite a bit in a short period of time. Today, even if it's just for an hour, I want to pause. We pause to think about the future. We pause to listen in on thought-provoking ideas and think about the trends that we see coming from the future. I am very excited and honored that we have Thomas Fry present to help us think about what lies ahead for not just Addison, but communities throughout the country themselves. Thomas Frey is Google's top-rated futurist speaker. He is also founder and executive director of the Da Vinci Institute based in Colorado. He is the author of a book called Communicating with the Future. He's a powerful visionary who is revolutionizing our thinking about the future. He has been fortunate enough to headline events along with some of today's most recognizable figures, including Nobel Peace Prize winner Mohammed Yunus, former CEO of General Electric Jack Welch, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, former President of Colombia Andrés Pastrana, Prime Minister of Spain Felipe González Marquez, Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, Saudi Prince Turki Al Faisal, and former World Bank President James Wolfensohn. As the executive director and senior futurist at the Da Vinci Institute, he works closely with the Institute's senior fellows and board of visionaries, to develop original research studies which enable him to speak on unusual topics, translating trends into unique opportunities. Thomas has been featured in hundreds of articles for both national and international publications, including the New York Times, Huffington Post, Times of India, USA Today, US News and World Report, and many more. He currently writes a weekly Future Trends Report newsletter and a weekly column for futuristspeaker.com. Before launching the Da Vinci Institute, Thomas spent 15 years at IBM as an engineer and designer where he received over 270 awards. more than any other IBM engineer. He is also a past member of the 999 Society, which is a high IQ society with over 99.9% percentile. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Thomas Frey.
All right, it's a great honor to be here with you today. I was told last night that the event today might get upstaged by the announcement by Rick Perry that he's running for president. So I spent a lot of time last night considering whether I too should run for president of the United States. So, but you'll be happy to know that I've decided I'd make a terrible president, and so that announcement will not be happening. So, all right. I was given a tour of Addison yesterday. I took a tour of the treehouse and drove around the community here. It's very impressive. You have a great city to work with here, and this can be a launching pad for lots of new things in the future. But we're a very backward-looking society. We're backward-looking because that's just human nature. We've all personally experienced the past. As we look around us, we see evidence of the past all around us. All information we come into contact with is essentially history. So the past is very knowable, and yet we're going to be spending the rest of our lives in the future. So it's almost as if we're walking backwards into the future. My job as a futurist is to help turn people around, to give them some idea of what the future might hold. So we're going to do some of that here today. But let's start with this central question of how does the future get created? Well, the future gets created in the minds of everybody around us. We all participate in creating the future. Some of us naturally have much more influence than others. But people make decisions today based on their understanding of what the future holds. So I use this phrase, the future creates the present. This is just the opposite of what most people think. Most people think that what we're doing today is going to somehow create the future. But from a little different perspective, it's these visions that we hold in our head determine our actions today. So here's the key thing. If we change somebody's vision of the future, we change the way they make decisions today. My promise to you is that with this short presentation I'm giving, I'm going to change your vision of the future. And as a result, you're going to walk out of here making different decisions. And if I don't do that, please hold my feet to the fire here, okay? First, I have a disclaimer, though. My disclaimer is that as a futurist, I get asked a lot, do you have a crystal ball? And yes, I do have a crystal ball. It was sitting around at home, and my wife says, why don't you just take this to the office? It's just collecting dust here. So I took my crystal ball, and I put it in the car, and I was no more than about 4 or 5 minutes down the road, and I looked over and I saw that my crystal ball had actually started a fire on the seat next to me. Now, crystal balls are also a giant lens, and with the sun shining in, this is like Boy Scouts 101. I should have known better. So luckily I was able to put it out and it didn't cause any serious damage, but then I had this revelation, and actually it must have come from my crystal ball. The revelation was that newspaper headlines the next day were going to say, futurist killed by his own crystal ball. And he didn't see it coming. So in the futurist profession, this is like the ultimate insult. So that's my one disclaimer. I don't see everything. Larry Page made the statement a while back, says the main reasons companies fail is because they miss the future. I happen to agree with that. Lots of things happening, and it's an easy thing to do, but try not to get blindsided by the future. All right, let's go through this real quick exercise here about who in your mind is the most famous person of all times. And let's do it in the non-religious sense. So in the secular world, who is the most famous person of all times? I'll just step through this quickly here. Since I run the Da Vinci Institute, naturally, Leonardo da Vinci comes to mind as one of the most famous people. But people like Christopher Columbus, Isaac Newton, Einstein, Edison, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. But sadly, as researchers have pointed out, that actually the most famous person alive today is actually this guy right here. It's kind of a sad commentary, huh? As I thought about this question a while, though, it occurred to me that the most famous person of all times probably hasn't been born yet, or we don't know who that person is. Now, this should be a very inspiring notion because there's an opening. You could aspire to become this person. And then the next logical question that came to mind is, what is the accomplishment that will make that person the most famous? So another way of phrasing that question is, what are the big things that still need to be accomplished in the world? I think right there is kind of the crux of the whole matter. Let me talk about this one new industry that's being developed right now. It's called atmospheric water harvesters. A lot of research being done. There's products being developed called fog nets that can actually suck moisture out of the air on a foggy morning. This is a project done by MIT in Lima, Peru. But these are known as the Orca water towers. They've been put in place in Africa. And the Orca water towers will actually suck in roughly 25 gallons of water a day. And so they can put multiple towers in place. And what this does is it radically changes the lives of young girls in the village because they're the ones that have to walk countless miles back and forth to the wells to bring water into the village. They've also taught the villagers how to actually manufacture these water towers, and it takes a team of 4 about a week to make each one. But then they know how to fix them and how to repair them at the same time. But atmospheric water harvester technology is going off in lots of different directions. And so this is actually a French company, Eola Water, that has turned windmills into devices that will suck moisture out of the air. Now, these are being designed for testing in Abu Dhabi, and they're able to bring in roughly 125 gallons a day, depending on the humidity levels. A young man in the US, Edward Liniger, has devised solar-powered units that will suck moisture out of the air and irrigate all the plants nearby. And because they're solar-powered, they don't have any human intervention. You just put them in place and they just irrigate all the plants nearby. That's called airdrop systems. Now, for this whole industry, the holy grail for the industry was the self-filling water bottle. And I spent a long time talking about self-filling water bottles, and then I came across this where a company actually figured out how to make that happen. A self-filling water bottle that fits on a bicycle, and as you're driving your bike down the road, it sucks the air in and it sucks the moisture out of the air and fills the water bottle. That's pretty cool. So if you're stranded on a lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific and you have a self-filling water bottle, that could be the difference between life and death. Shows briefly how that technology works, but it's all based on how much air is coming through there. Now, this is what I refer to as a catalytic innovation. Catalytic innovations are different than disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations are disrupting existing industries, forcing companies to do more with less. Catalytic innovations are creating entire new industries. So examples in the past of catalytic industries are things like electricity, automobiles, airplanes, telephones, photographs. All of these have gone on to create multi-billion-dollar industries. But here's the thing. All industries are a bell curve. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yes, all industries will eventually end and get replaced with something else. Most industries today end up being in the second half of the bell curve. They're constantly being forced to do more with less. Now, this is real interesting. I'll give you an example of this with this topic of peak steel. We always hear about peak oil, but let's talk about peak steel. Projections are that the peak demand for steel in the world will be reached somewhere around 2024. This is when we're going to be developing synthetic materials, and the overall demand for steel will start to decline. The peak employment in the steel industry actually happened, though, in the 1980s. The peak employment in the steel industry is 3 times what it was today, and yet we're producing far more steel. So this is an industry that's a good example of an industry that's constantly having to do more with less. And so the peak employment in an industry is actually a precursor to an actual, sometime in the future, it's going to start declining for the overall decline in the demand for products or services. As my favorite physicist, Max Planck, likes to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, I made a prediction several months back that by 2030, over 2 billion jobs are going to go away. Now, when I talk about 2 billion jobs going away, that doesn't mean we're going to have 2 billion people unemployed. This really represents about half of the jobs on planet Earth. What it means, though, is this is intended to be a wake-up call, that we're going to be transitioning jobs at a faster rate than ever before in history. And so we need to figure out ways to compensate for that. So this is what I refer to as the level problem. Now, most of us have this tool in our garage at home, if we want to level out pictures on the wall or we're doing some construction. But once you're able to download a level app on your smartphone, suddenly you no longer need that tool. What that means is you no longer have the need for somebody to make the aluminum frame for that tool. You no longer have the need for somebody to make the glass bulbs or to do the assembly work, the shipping and the receiving, the retail stores that handle it. So every time we download a mobile app, we're eliminating a piece of a job. It's a very tiny piece, but when we're downloading billions and billions of apps, we're eliminating a lot of jobs. And so this is a precursor to this technological unemployment era that we're moving into. If you think about what Uber has done and Lyft and some of the other ride-sharing programs, or companies like Airbnb, all this sharing economy and the technology associated with it, what they're actually doing is they're automating middle management people out of existence. Middle management is being replaced with software. Now, it's kind of hard to hate software. You'd like some person or something that you can hate, but software is this nebulous thing out there. And so we're automating lots of jobs out of existence with the sharing economy. This is actually a robotic chef that was demonstrated at CES in Asia just a few days ago. And this is a chef that can actually prepare over 2,000 different meals, and it actually charges $0 per hour for its work. This is China's first attempt at a zero labor factory. They're actually working on, it's ironic because China has lots of people, and yet they're working on creating factories that don't require any labor whatsoever. So on one hand, we're getting rid of a lot of jobs. On the other hand, we're freeing up human capital. So this is a double-edged sword here. But just because there aren't enough jobs doesn't mean we've suddenly run out of work to do in the world. I mean, that's fairly preposterous. Say that, nah, everybody needs to stay home because there's no work left to do in the world. Yeah, that's a silly notion. But what this is doing, though, is it's giving us extra capabilities. And I wrote a column recently on this topic of the laws of exponential capabilities. And I'll just go through the very first law. There's three different laws, but the first one says that with automation, every exponential decrease in effort creates an equal and opposite exponential increase in capabilities. So as it's easier to do something, we can naturally do more of it. I'll give you a quick example of it. In 1850, the average transportation speed in the United States, and I apologize, I have this in kilometers. Average transportation speed in the United States was 4 miles an hour. In 1900, it jumped up to actually 8 miles an hour. And in 1950, because there were a lot more people driving cars, we got up to a transportation speed of 24 miles an hour. In 2000, because there are so many people flying in airplanes, the average transportation speed jumped up to 75 miles an hour. And then in 2050, if you follow that trend line, we should all be traveling roughly 225 miles an hour. And so we've gone from somebody that the amount of distance that somebody travels in their lifetime has gone up 100-fold over the last 200 years. And so how do we reach those type of speeds, and how do we reach that type of distance? I'll talk a little bit about that here as we go on. But where will our next generation jobs come from? And it all orients around jobs, and how do we keep people employed? The answer is future industries. So we're going to look at some of these future industries. Mark Andreessen, the famous, he's the guy that pretty much invented the browser. He's the one that started Netscape way back when, but he runs Andreessen Horowitz, the big VC firm right now. He says that software is eating the world. And it really is. I mean, we're creating this software layer over everything physical in the world, and that's creating unusual capabilities. A lot of that's happening with the Internet of Things. For those of you who don't know the history of the Internet of Things, this was a term that came about somewhere between 2008 and 2009. That's when Cisco recognized that the number of devices connected to the Internet started to exceed the number of people on Earth. We had 6.8 billion people on Earth. Suddenly we had 6.8 billion devices on Earth. Now the projections are that we're going to have 50 billion things connected to the Internet by 2020. So what are all these things? In addition to that, there was a year and a half ago, they had an event in San Francisco called the Trillion Sensor Summit. Now, they were charged, this was put on by Fairchild Semiconductor, and they were charged with this idea of how long would it be before we reach 1 trillion sensors in the world. And they came to the conclusion that it'll be somewhere around 2024 that we reach 1 trillion sensors in the world. And then around 2036, we will have 100 trillion sensors in the world. Now what this means is that sensors, and these are sensors that can detect everything from heat to temperature to moisture to barometric pressure, millions of different things we can detect with sensors. But these sensors become very tiny, very ubiquitous, easy to manufacture, very inexpensive. And so we'll start adding sensors to all kinds of coatings, like paint that we apply to the wall will have lots of sensors in it. We'll have powder coating, we'll have sensors on the sides of our cars, on the sides of bridges, on the sides of buildings. We'll have sensors embedded in our clothing, and so we will have information radiating from all different surfaces. This is a form of graphene sensor that's 1,000 times more sensitive to light than anything out there today. For those of you who don't know about graphene, that's one of our new super materials. Graphene is actually just a layer of carbon that is 1 atom thick, and it gives it unusual capabilities. Now, out of the middle of all this Internet of Things comes what we call Enchanted Objects. And these are products that have kind of magical capabilities. And I thought I would just show you a few of these. They're kind of coming out of the woodwork right now. This is the Amazon trash can. This is one where you just simply throw stuff in the trash can, it'll scan the barcode, it will reorder the product and have it delivered to your doorstep the next day. You know, Amazon really likes this product. This is the Memo Smart Mirror. This actually, when you're trying on clothes, it actually records what you looked like before, and so you can compare your past outfit with your present outfit. And then there are versions of this where it makes you actually look better than you actually do look. But the Vitality Glow Cap, for those of you who have to take medicine at a certain time every day, this thing gets set up so that if you forget to take your medicine, the light will start flashing. If you still forget to take your medicine, then it'll start chirping. And if you still forget to take it, it'll start text messaging. It'll send you text messages, and it'll nag you until you actually take your medicine. So, this is the Ambient Umbrella. This is really a smart umbrella. It knows what the weather's going to be this afternoon. So if it knows it's going to rain out, it'll start flashing a light on your umbrella to remind you to take it along with you. The Mimo baby monitor, and these are coming out in lots of different shapes and forms, but these things are tracking all kinds of everything from movement to heartbeat to temperature of your baby. I love this one. It's the Flying Nixie camera. It looks like a watch you have on your wrist, where you just unlatch it, and it turns into this little flying drone. You can throw it like a frisbee, and then you can use your smartphone and go spy on your neighbors then. I mean, who wouldn't want one of those, huh? This is the Biometric coffee maker. Again, this is one of those really smart products. You get up in the morning, you put your hand on it, it knows exactly how much caffeine you need to get your day started. It'll also tell you how much sweetener should go into it. And we think it's actually going to come out with a Jack Daniel's switch on it. So, these are smart chopsticks that were invented by the company Baidu, the Chinese search engine company. And it's really good because it can tell you if the food you're eating is actually safe to eat. The problem is that you have to know how to use chopsticks. This is the Pinto Feed pet food, and it actually allows you to remotely dispense pet food for your pets. And since we all know that pets don't like to eat alone, you can actually FaceTime your pet while they're eating. So for those of you who have pets at home and you're not FaceTiming them, well, shame on you. And this one here is the dog translator called No More Wolf, and you can actually start understanding what your dog's thinking. And it looks really good on them too. I think this one has a ways to go. We're also immersing ourselves in this hyper-individualized consumer marketplace. I'll give you some examples of this. This is the 3D printing world. I went to the Consumer Electronics Show in January in Las Vegas. My wife and I went there. And one of the first booths we went to, what they did is they sat us down and they actually scanned the inside of our ears. And they got all the dimensions for the inside of our ears. And then they proceeded to actually 3D print earbuds for us that are specifically designed for our ears. Now they don't look like much, but these are absolutely the most comfortable earbuds I've ever owned. I can travel across the ocean and I can sleep on these things and they work perfect. And it occurred to me how few things that we have in life that are perfectly designed for us. There's not that many. So this is going to apply to hearing aids and lots of other technologies. I'll mention a few here in a bit. 3D printing is going to enable us to be printing circuit boards here. I love this one here. LG just announced that they have developed a television that's like wallpaper that you can put on a wall. It's 1 millimeter thick. And so what will our TV watching experience be like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? This is a game changer here. This is going to change a lot of how we think about that. Now, when I had my face scanned at CES and got my own Captain America action figure, as well I should. You know. But we're transitioning from this era of taking selfies to actually creating shapies, so we can scan our entire body and we can build little statues, little monuments to ourselves that we give to our friends. The whole 3D printing world was started by this guy here, Charles Hull. This was in the early 1980s when he started this, and he's still working at 3D Systems out in California. We started with just printing in plastics and resins. Now we have over 300 printable materials, and that will probably increase tenfold just within the next few years here. On the high end, we have the Hewlett-Packard announced this multi-jet fusion 3D printer, which has set a whole new level for the industry. They have 30,000 spray nozzles, 350 million drops per second. It's 10 times faster and 50% cheaper than anything else on the market. And we're able to actually print things like, and the other thing is you can print in full color on this too. That's pretty unusual. There are 3D printers that can print in more than one substance simultaneously. So that will go up considerably in the future as well. But this is the first car that was printed. It took 44 hours. This is the Stratia. But imagine, just a few years in the future, when you go into a clothing store, the first thing you do is you step into a body scanner. And it scans and gives you all the dimensions of your body. And while you're waiting for that to give you the dimensions, you're walking around picking out whatever styles, fashions, and colors you want, and then you can 3D print the clothing for yourself right there while you're waiting. Imagine having clothes that actually fits perfect the first time. What kind of experience is that? And if you think that this is such an odd thing, this is actually 3D printed clothing. And we're able to print clothing in such exotic fashions and styles that it's things that you can't make with traditional fabrics. You can see how elaborate some of these designs are. This is a new fall lineup, and they've also figured out how they can add things to actual fabric clothing. And it's not just your clothes, it's also your shoes. Imagine getting your feet scanned in and having shoes that fit perfect the first time. This is a company that's figured out how to do layers of material, so you have different squishiness of the soles of your shoes. The bottom one here is actually a cast. So if you break your arm, you can get your arm scanned, and you can get a cast that actually fits your arm. And it has little scratch holes because these things are naturally itchy. Now, the 3D shoe printers are out there. They're not quite ready for prime time yet, but very soon. These things are coming. A few months back, Disney announced that they figured out how to print hair. And naturally, I jumped on that article and wanted to read it because I'm losing all of my hair. So then I found out that they're just actually good at creating hair that's in like a little doll. So that wasn't what I was looking for. All right, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit and talk a little bit about this topic of contour crafting. Contour crafting is real interesting because this is it's a form of 3D printing where they're actually able to print with fast-drying concrete. Now, we're starting off here and they're printing with ceramics, one layer at a time, and we're getting to a point where you can build up a vase in just a little bit that'll show how they're actually able to build walls. with this. There's been, it's just going to switch over here. Now, this is fast-drying concrete that's fiberglass reinforced. If you can imagine a concrete pumper that's feeding material in here. Now, as they were working on this, and this has been around for the last 12 years, they've been working on this technology. It's very complicated. But there's been a lot of speculation about who is going to be able to actually print the first house, 3D print an entire house. And so there was a group, a Dutch group, one in London, one in Southern California. And as it turned out, the first house was printed by a company in China. They not only printed the first house, they actually printed 10 houses in one day for an average price of under $5,000. Now, these are not fancy houses by any stretch, but they do have lots of homeless people in China. And this is an interesting solution. So this company, and this is the CEO of the company, using a technology a lot just like I just showed you. He made an interesting comment. He says that before they printed 10 houses in one day, he said that they actually printed their entire factory, which was about 100,000 square feet of space. And he said it took them 30 days. He says that was a lot of work. So the latest announcement from this company called Winsun in China is they actually printed this 13,000 square foot mansion. Now, when you look closely at the corners and everything, it's a little rough around the edges, but it's not bad. So they printed the 13,000 square foot mansion, and they also printed a 4-story building. Now, this is a precursor to lots of other things that are coming down the pike. So the whole concept is can we actually set up a rig on a building site and actually just start printing right there in the ground? And can we print a new house in a single day? So down here in Texas, sometime in the future, if you get a hailstorm and it destroys your roof, it may actually be cheaper for you to grind up your house and reprint it. In fact, you may come home and your wife or your husband decided that you wanted a new house. So, and here's the key thing, you don't even have to clean the house before you grind it up and reprint it. How cool is that? And if you think this is so far out there, this is a company called Bet Abrams that's making a house printer for $16,000 in Slovenia. And so what are you waiting for? I mean, you can just get started. Now, once we're able to actually print houses like this, then suddenly we no longer have a need for flat walls. Every wall can become an artistic centerpiece. Architects are going to have a heyday with this because they can create these free-form structures that are unlike anything out there that you can't create with today's construction methods. And incidentally, you can print with concrete for a while, then steel, then glass, then back to concrete again. You can use multiple materials, and you can actually print wiring in a wall, and you can actually print plumbing in a wall. And so the whole thing can be done from top to bottom. Our idea of what living structures and what social structures are going to look like in the future are going to radically change because they can. We will have new options that we've never even considered in the past. And it's just a matter of scale before we will be able to actually start printing very big structures like ships or hospitals or baseball stadiums or floating islands. I love floating islands. I think I'll take 2 of them. But 3D printing is going off in 1,000 different directions. Here's some examples of, this is 3D printed skin for burn victims. This guy's printing a human vein for surgery. You can actually get your brain scanned in, and you can actually 3D print a copy of your brain and set it on your desk. You know, that's kind of the ultimate ego boost. So this is my brain. How's it compared to your brain? This little kid has printed a prosthetic arm for his hand for a fraction of the price of what traditional prosthetic limbs go for. And what this is doing is this is pushing creativity out to the edges, because somebody that needs a new prosthetic limb can design something that is uniquely theirs, one of a kind, something that they love to look at every day. This little girl has an exoskeleton that gives her this wide range of movement that she never had before. It's all 3D printed. This is Lee Cronin. He's a professor at the University of Glasgow in Scotland. He believes that we're going to switch and have all of our pharmaceutical drugs printed with 3D printers. When he made the announcement, he said something kind of interesting. He says all of our pharmaceutical drugs essentially come from 7 basic substances. So you just put in those 7 cartridges and you can print anything you want. If you think that's far-fetched, we actually have pill printers in Belgium. This is a company that prints pills, not only prints the pills, but also prints the packaging for the pills. It doesn't work quite the way that Lee Cronin had thought, but we can get very precise in how we meter out pharmaceuticals in the future. 3D printed organs. On the right is bladders, kidneys, ears. They're already doing that. Craig Ventnor thinks that we're going to be able to print antibodies and new life forms, new vaccines. We can just create those as we need them. And I always like to ask this question of how long before I can 3D print a replacement body for myself. I think something around 18, 20 years old, much more muscular, better looking, a lot more hair. I think that would be good. If I haven't weirded you out enough yet, 3D printed food is definitely coming. NASA actually had a competition to see who could actually 3D print pizzas, and this is some of the competition stuff there. They're looking at this because we don't have any indigenous food supplies on Mars or on the moon, and so wouldn't it be cool if we could actually, whatever we send up there, we can create new food sources that look a little different. These things are coming out of the woodwork. These are 3D printed hamburgers, 3D printed chickpea snacks, 3D printed raviolis, corn chips, sugar cubes. And at CES, they had a booth set up so you could get your face scanned and have your face printed in chocolate. Apparently, there's a big demand for people who want to eat their face in chocolate. I don't get it, actually, but... And this is, this is a living biscuit. Living biscuits are actually 3D printed, and they print in the spores and the seeds, and you set them on a shelf, let them rise and grow into place for a few days, and then voila, you have magic living food. Looks pretty yummy, doesn't it? If you imagine all the apples from an apple tree, all the apples that fall off and fall on the ground, if you can imagine taking that same apple stock and you can actually reform it into a perfect apple every time. Not only is it a perfect apple, you can also eat the stem and the core and the leaf because it's all printed out of the same material. Only you happen to like almond flavoring in your apple, so you can do that. You need a little more vitamin D in your diet. Well, you can add that in too. Every Wednesday, you happen to like blue apples. That's cool. You can do that as well. So would you buy a product if it said that it was naturally grown, completely organic, printed food? Is that kind of an oxymoron? Is that... Chris Anderson, the former managing editor of Wired Magazine, he says that 3D printing is going to be bigger than the internet. And I actually happen to agree with him on that. You have a question? I have to ask you a question. Okay.
Let's go back to first.
It's actually food.
Did you say that? Did I miss it?
You're actually going to be printing it out of food, whether it's flour or whether it's like applesauce that's reconstituted.
Whatever the source material is in the food product is reconstituted through a 3D printing process.
Yeah.
And they can be flavored, sweetened, or unsweetened.
Right, right. It's a different process for making food. Yeah, if it causes you to raise your eyebrows, you're not alone, so. All right, another future industry is the flying drone world. I wrote a column recently on this topic of 192 future uses for flying drones. And I started off with just raising this question of, if we added a video projector to a drone, what additional capabilities would that give a drone? And I thought that was rather interesting because I thought, well, we could actually use it in concerts, we could create other visual performances, but then it occurred to me that if we wanted to do marketing and advertising, that we could actually use a drone to actually shine an ad right in front of a very targeted person. And this company actually, after I wrote that column, they actually started experimenting with this, and they actually created it. And so we could actually shine ads in front of very specific people. This could become the most annoying form of marketing ever invented. But very likely we will see banner ads flying through the air similar to this in the near future. Now, we've all heard about Amazon wanting to deliver things with drones, but there's some natural problems with this. Actually, because the FAA has had all these restrictions, China has moved ahead quite a bit in this area, and this is Alibaba's company, Taobao, that has been delivering quite a few different things, but it's a problematic area. I'll show you a quick video here of how Google is working on this.
Throughout history, there have been a series of innovations that have each taken a huge chunk out of the friction of moving things around. Project Wing aspires to take another big chunk of the remaining friction out of moving things around in the world.
We're in Australia. The goal of being here is to show that the hard work over the last 2 years has resulted in a reliable system that can do autonomous delivery. And we also really just want to get out and learn what it's like to actually deliver to the neighbor Neil and see what it's like from their perspective. It's years from a product, but it is sort of the first prototype that we want to stand behind.
So anyway, I just wanted to show you that short video clip there of kind of some of the thinking. This is vertical takeoff, and it has fixed wings, so it can haul larger loads over a long period, longer distances. But it's problematic in all kinds of areas, like where do we drop the package? When we order something from Amazon, you order a bottle of shampoo from Amazon, does that mean we have a pilot that's actually driving that bottle of shampoo to your house? And then where do they actually put it in your house? That's a big question. This is a company that has decided to have food delivered right to your table with a flying drone. And I looked at this and I thought, what can possibly go wrong with chopsticks and whirling blades? This is the one that we all need, naturally, is emergency beer drones. This is a wine delivery drone. But this idea of where do they put the package? I mean, Google was trying to drop a line, and naturally that's going to get tied up in trees and things in the future, power lines. But where do we put the package? Where is it okay to set things in your house, and how do we get things delivered there? Is this a new marketing opportunity? Probably. Are we going to have pizzas delivered with little robotic guys that come to your house? Actually, ground-based delivery drones are going to be a much bigger opportunity for delivery than the air ones. It's going to look like this. I think that's kind of corny looking. I'm going to show you this quick video. This is real short, but Domino's is actually working on this. Yeah, that's all it is, 7 seconds. And it's a delivery drone pizza that gets delivered to your house and it texts you when it gets there, so then you come out and get it. Now that works with something where you have somebody waiting. Now it doesn't work if it's delivering a package to your house and nobody's home. That's quite different. The whole delivery world is problematic. We haven't built durable drones yet. I mean, if I'm Amazon and I want to deliver stuff with drones, I want drones that can actually make 10,000 trips or 50,000 trips. We haven't created that durability in them yet. But again, these are opportunities. Agriculture is going to have lots of drones, everything from seeding to spraying, herbicides, pesticides. There's a NASA scientist that announced that he's going to drop seed pods with drones and actually start planting 1 billion trees a year with drones. These drones are coming in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. A few scans over a field will tell you how many, what are the wet spots on the field, where the different levels of fertilizer are, nutrients and insects and diseases on the field. We're going to send out drones for emergency rescue purposes. Every news organization is going to be racing to get drone footage of every incident happening in the city. Cities are going to, as a first response, are going to send up drones to get eyes on whatever that incident might be. And then they can formulate an action plan once they see what's going on. We have the potential to eliminate forest fires and brush fires altogether just by having drones scanning with infrared sensors, because fires are easy to put out when they're very small, but once they turn into several hundred acres, they're very hard to put out. And so rather than turning into giant blazes like this, we send out the fire extinguisher drones and they put them out right away, very early on. Peter Diamandis says that we're headed from a world of 2 billion people connected to the internet to 7 billion in 2020. In just over a 10-year period, we're going to multiply that. And it's going to take place with these type of drones. Google just bought a company called Titan. These are solar-powered drones that fly at very high altitude. Facebook has their own Ascenta drones. And it flies at 80 to 90,000 foot in the air. So this is low-flying satellites or high-flying cell towers, if you think about it that way. And Titan says that they can stay aloft for up to 5 years at a time. There's no humans up there, and they're powered by the sun, and they're above all the weather patterns, above all the traffic patterns. And their idea is to provide Wi-Fi to all the remaining people on Earth. And so you can imagine that they're going to also start offering dial-up services through these things as well. Now Google is adding these extra dimensions. They're actually putting in these cube satellites, the CubeSats. They bought a company called Skybox, and so they're adding different dimensions to this as they go. But all of this is paving the way for ultra-high-speed transportation. I'll just touch on this real quick. A lot of you have probably heard about Elon Musk in the Hyperloop area. Daryl Oster is one of his competitors working on something called ET3. This is tube transportation. If you create a tube and you take all the air out of it and you put a maglev track on the bottom, there's no friction whatsoever. This is what Daryl calls space travel on Earth. We can achieve speeds of over 4,000 miles an hour in these. So if you think about this, we currently ship more things through tubes and pipes than any other form of transportation. We have water lines, sewage lines, lots of things going through pipes. So why not people and freight? It's just an extension of an old idea. So these capsules could go very fast. They can go across the Bering Strait, across the Darien Gap. We could go to every continent on Earth and get it all connected. We can either do it shipping goods is what we'll start with, and then shipping people after that. But a trip from Dallas to Beijing in 2 hours, I mean, how cool is that? So in just a few years, very likely, we will have people that will have breakfast in Dallas, they'll have lunch in Shanghai and dinner in Oslo, Norway, and that'll be a routine thing just because you can. We build out this network everywhere. This has the potential to be the world's largest infrastructure project. And as we have lots of people being unemployed, technological unemployment, we're going to need giant projects like this in the future to keep everybody employed. This could potentially employ hundreds of millions of people over the next 50 years as we build out this network all around the world. So as we talk about future industries, I could have talked about lots of different areas: driverless cars, the quantified self, big data, renewable energy, mass energy storage, biofactories, micro colleges, smart homes, 24-hour cities. All of these are other possible future industries, and there's a lot more than that. As Mark Twain says, a man carries a cat by the tail, learns something he can learn in no other way. But isn't that the truth? The future is ours to write. I'll leave you with a few predictions here. Driverless cars will change transportation as dramatically as the invention of the automobile itself. By 2030, the average person will own printed clothing, live in a printed house, have packages delivered by drones, own more than one robot, work as a freelancer, frequently use a driverless car, be 3 times more educated than they are today, and will be capable of accomplishing 10 times as much in a single lifetime. We're entering a period of unprecedented opportunity. Why is this so important? Because humanity is going to change more in the next 20 years than in all human history. At the same time, risk factors are going to increase exponentially. We have more chance of things being broken along the way. And our children's children, who haven't even been born yet, are counting on you. As Steve Jobs says, right now is one of those times when you are influencing the future. But sometimes our best efforts just look a lot like this. Yeah, pretty much just like that. As Thomas Addison says, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. So any of you that like more information about what we do at the Da Vinci Institute, you can just sign up for our free newsletter or pick up my card afterwards, but I thank you very much for having me here today. I guess we went a little bit over on time here, so we don't have a chance for questions then. All right, I hand it over to Orlando here.
Test. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon. As Thomas mentioned, we are out of time. We promise to get all of you out of here by 1 o'clock. However, he will be around for the next few minutes if any of you would like to meet with him. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for being here, and I hope all of you have a great day and the rest of the week as well. So thank you.
For data compression and stuff that we're able to do that, right?